Hi, good evening. Welcome along. This is the Transfer Show. Right, there's loads to get sorted out at Newcastle as well, as we know. So let's bring in our reporter Keith Downey, who covers that patch for us. Keith, obviously we're going to talk Alexander Isak in just a moment. First, though, Malik Chow. Now, we saw him leave Milan last night. So where's this deal up to?
There's names that you mentioned there, Darwin Núñez and Benjamin Sesko, are all linked to this, or potentially linked to this Alexander Isak situation. Of course, this all started a couple of weeks ago when Alexander Isak failed to travel with the Newcastle first team squad on their pre-season tour of Asia. He then decided to have a solo trip to Spain with his own backroom staff, his own individual staff, and get some rehab and some training there, really against the wishes of Eddie Howe and his backroom team at Newcastle. Eddie Howe said he found out about that trip through the media, so the optics of that weren't good. As we know, Isak returned on Saturday to the northeast. The Newcastle first team squad returned on Monday. They were given yesterday off, and they're back in training just a couple of hundred yards over to my right hand side this morning. Eddie Howe has decided that he wants to have a kind of gathering, friends and family bonding session at the training ground today. So once the players finish training, which is just about now, I think, the players' families and children, wives, partners are all invited into the training ground for lunch and activities for the kids, just to try and ensure that everyone is together. Now, this isn't a new thing. They have it quite often here at Newcastle, but I think the timing of it interesting, given everything that's going on with Benjamin Sesko and Alexander Isak. But interestingly, Isak has been told to report once the gathering has ended. So he's to report late afternoon here to the training ground, where he will receive treatment.
OK, all right, let's talk Alexander Isak. We have to do that. Less than 3 weeks now until the close of the window. So what's your reading of the situation?
Look, I think the longer this goes on, the longer there is stalemate, so to speak, the more likelihood there is of Alexander Isak playing for Newcastle this season. Look, Liverpool came in for him 10 days ago, didn't they, with that bid of £110 million plus add-ons. It feels like it's been a long 10 days since then. Now, of course, as we know, Newcastle tried to line up a replacement for him. They thought Benjamin Sesko was that man. Instead, of course, he opted for Manchester United at the last moment, and it left Newcastle high and dry. I feel their options now, between now and the end of the transfer window, are getting less and less, and I think there's a huge question mark hanging over the Isak deal, because Newcastle will not allow the Swedish striker to leave and join Liverpool if they don't have a ready-made replacement lined up. As I say, the options are fairly thin on the ground, and as the days tick on, I would say it's increasingly likely that he will be a Newcastle player this season. Certainly for the first part of the season anyway. We'll wait and see what happens in January. But of course, with that, there's going to have to be a lot of work behind the scenes. Clearly not happy, Alexander Isak, but neither are the Newcastle United supporters. It feels like there's been a lot of bridges burned these last couple of weeks. They're not happy with his conduct, so a lot is going to have to be smoothed over behind the scenes for him to continue here and continue in a positive way, because he was a real fan's favourite. Think of all those Newcastle fans, Mike, who of course he reduced to tears at the cup final back in March with that winner against Liverpool. People have got Isak 14 tattooed all over their body. You see kids in the street everywhere in Newcastle with Isak 14 on their shirt, and I think for them, they just feel really let down by his conduct these last couple of weeks. So Eddie Howe's going to have to do his best man management skills with not just the player, but with the supporters as well, to ensure that they can move on from this. But look, there is still 3 weeks left. I wouldn't be surprised if Liverpool came in with another bid, but until Newcastle have a ready-made replacement, and as I say, they don't have many options left, until they get someone in, Alexander Isak will be going nowhere.
And share for more electrifying Liverpool updates as they happen.